All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to ArcVision. Welcome back to ArcVision. My guest today is my good friend, Aaron Nowak. Aaron is someone fascinated and capable of spending an incredible amount of time and energy digging into the more esoteric and abstract parts of life, asking questions that only a few of us ever get the chance to. Like the greats before him, such as Carl Jung, Rudolf Steiner, and Alan Watts, he has a brilliant ability to articulate what he has learned, and I can confidently say I have had conversations with him that I have not had with any other human being ever. Education-wise, Aaron attended Mohawk College for Environmental Science, and his passion for the harder sciences such as chemistry, math, and physics has recently transformed into a curiosity with sacred geometry and astronomy. Taking his comprehensive background and a recent interest in the practice of yoga, Aaron is currently finding a way to create a methodology that incorporates all of these parts of his life in a way that can be practically utilized in people's day-to-day lives. So Aaron, welcome to ArcVision. How are you doing, man?
Thank you, Anton. I'm doing good. It's good to talk with you again.
Dude, how was that? How was that intro, buddy?
In conversations. Intro was good. Just one minor correction. Last name's Nowak. W is pronounced a V. So Nowak.
Okay. I feel so bad because we've been friends for like a year now, and I didn't even know your last name until like today.
It's okay. They're not that important.
Okay, so pretty much the first thing I wanted to talk about is pretty much today. You actually said that you had been thinking a lot about health and body science. Like, are you talking about kind of like Ben Greenfield stuff, like biohacking? What are you kind of referring to in that?
Yeah, so I guess biohacking is one way that you could define it. I've always just had a very natural interest in the human body. When I look at what it is we have, it actually amazes me how this body functions. It's all these separate parts that function together as a unit. And whenever you experience, something that's off in your body, whether it's aches and pains or whether it's just some other health condition, usually it's some sort of imbalance in the body. And one of the things that I've been interested in for a good chunk of my adult life, starting as a teenager, was just taking care of my body, fitness, nutrition, and then I guess you would call biohacking just things that you would do that are a little bit unconventional. Some of them are becoming a little bit more commonplace and conventional, but just different things you can do. And a lot of times I find that these small changes that you can make are really that. They're just small changes, but if you are able to follow them through, they can have very profound effects.
So like, let's say someone is new to biohacking and there's three things like today. What could someone do like right after this conversation to maximize the benefits of biohacking? Just quick and easy, something they don't have to spend too much money. Because I know, like, I'm a big fan of Ben Greenfield and Dave Asprey, and they're spending thousands of dollars finding ways to biohack their physiology. So, like, what simple things, what tips and tools do you have?
So, I often find with these type of methods, less is more. And less is more, I would say the first thing I would start with is eating. And that oftentimes we overeat. And sometimes we eat just because the time of day tells us it is breakfast, lunch, or dinner, or we eat for emotional reasons. We eat because we're bored. And so I find that when it comes to eating, oftentimes less is more. And even when you look at like what science says about blood sugar in particular, constantly eating, especially foods that are high in sugar, can be pretty detrimental to your health. And then you have what goes along with that, insulin resistance, and then just the effects of insulin resistance, high elevated blood sugar, and that's where the practice of like intermittent fasting or just in general fasting can be very beneficial, because you are allowing your blood sugar to return to baseline or essentially zero, and then allow the body's other functions to kick in. And I would say a lot of us, even if you are lean already, we have stored meals.
Yeah, 100%. I think most people do.
So if you can just, maybe cut your eating window down, like intermittent fasting, cut it down to an 8-hour window, you can utilize some of those stored meals. And then you can just take advantage of lower blood sugar and even hormones like cortisol. I know sometimes that is a hormone that is kind of demonized or looked down upon, but cortisol has a lot of beneficial functions. And one of them, they say breaking down muscle tissue, which yes, that is correct, but also breaking down fatty tissue. And I think your body will prefer to break down that fatty tissue in most instances as opposed to muscle tissue, as long as you've given your body what it needs and in the correct circumstances. So that's one of the things I would say. The other one's that actually is even simpler is water. How much water do you drink? What is the quality of the water? Right, there you go. You know, you're getting quite a few liters in per day. And I work in water treatment. And so I test a lot of water. I read a lot about water. And I'm always learning new things that I can apply into my life. And yeah, just drinking more water as opposed to drinking other types of beverages. And I mean, like, I am having a cup of decaf coffee right now, and I will probably have like 1 or 2 coffees in the morning. But even then,
why decaf right now? Why decaf?
My body's just extremely sensitive to caffeine, and any time past like 11, 12 o'clock, I'd have to switch to decaf. Otherwise,
are you serious? No way, man.
I have a hard time. And like, I just enjoy having a cup of coffee. To me, it's just like, I don't know, it's a bit of like a ritual. If I'm sitting down to read or to do something, I like a nice hot beverage. And I mean, I've been drinking water from the time I wake up. I actually have different kinds of water I drink. I drink water out of a copper vessel when I first wake up in the morning, just because
a copper vessel?
Yeah, out of a copper jug. I keep water in that, and I drink that first thing in the morning because copper is very beneficial for you. Especially if you're somebody who supplements with zinc. They say that zinc and copper kind of go hand in hand. They have a lot Yeah, they have a lot of positive effects, especially hormonally. But if you're supplementing with one and not the other, you can deplete yourself in the other and cause a bit of like imbalances. So a little bit of copper water in the morning. It's great for digestion too. It creates like a peristalsis within the digestive tract. And it kind of stimulates your digestion and, you know, your morning routine.
I get what you're saying, man. I hear you.
Right. So, yeah, you know, some copper water in the morning, and then have like the old trick of drinking some lemon water. You know, I think that's for you, just to, you know, obviously to alkaline your body and to give you some of that citric acid, you know, and ascorbic acid, your vitamin C, but also I'm interested in how your body breaks things down and converts them into digestive acids. For example, I believe it's citric acid that your body breaks down into tricarboxylic acid, which is one of the main digestive acids that you have within your stomach. Also, hypochloric acid is another one in your stomach. And so it's good to intake chloride. And that's where
chloride?
Yeah, so I believe if you have salt in your diet,
sodium chloride.
Yeah, sodium chloride. Yeah, so like chlorine is not good for you. You know, chlorine they say is carcinogenic. But I got thinking like, okay, so why is chlorine not good for you, but chloride is good for you? And it's because chloride is just it's in a different form, and it's something that your body can actually use. And one of the things that it does with that is it creates hypochloric acid within your stomach and allows you to digest. So you have your digestive acids along with your probiotics, and that just aids in good digestion. And nobody likes when they have indigestion or they feel like they're, you know, things are just sitting there. So anyway, so I kind of went off topic there, but water.
No, dude, that's fine, man. You say whatever you want, dude. Go for it.
I could just keep on going forever. Yeah, water is very good, and sleep. Right. And that's actually when you told me to take some notes down as far as some things that I wanted to talk about. Sleep is one of those things that we obviously know is very good for us. And I've always known is good. And I've always been a very good sleeper. But
how much do you sleep a night?
8 hours.
8 hours. Okay.
8 hours.
Because I've heard that people say, some people say 7 hours is the perfect number. Other people say 8. And like, again, this guy named Ben Greenfield, who I follow, he says that depending on like certain people have different alleles, and they're almost like genetic markers where some people, like I think I'm in the percentage where I need an hour more of sleep than the average person. So if most people is 8 hours, I need 9. I know someone else who's like that is a woman by the name of Brené Brown, a phenomenal author. I love her. She's the same way. And then some people, like my friend Robert Light, he can get 2 hours. He can't get more than 3 hours a night. And he's tried. He can't. His body just boom. His entire family, dude. Literally.
And how does he feel? And how does he feel after a night?
Incredible. 3 hours. He's like, he's been doing this since he was like a kid. Like ever since he was a child. No one in his family, they all have genetic tics. I think they're called alleles. I think that's what it's called. Please don't quote me. But I would look it up.
Solid.
Yeah. And another question I had for you is, I love how you brought up fasting, because that, when people ask me this question, I say fast. Boom. Like, but actually, I always say sleep and fasting. Water is another one too. But on fasting, I love it because it's free. You actually cheapen your amount of food you have every day because you fit into a compressed window and you can't eat as much. And do you know Dr. Sachin Panda or Dr. Rhonda Patrick?
I haven't heard of them, no.
So definitely, they're incredible. They're the leading scientists on intermittent fasting. I think Dr. Sachin Panda is the leading scientist on fasting. And Rhonda has kind of like taken apprenticeship under him, I believe. But they did an incredible study, and they took two species of the same species of rats, but two different kind of groups or something. Let's say groups. And in group A and group B, they had the same food. But in group A, they allowed those rats to eat around the clock, anytime they wanted. And then the other group of rats, was only allowed to eat within I think it was a 12-hour feeding window. So it wasn't even like the 8 that we're kind of talking about, because I do 6.
I prefer 6 too.
Yeah, 18 hours and 6. I find anything more than 6 and I get indigestion. Like I can't fit that much food into anything more than a 6-hour window. Like I've kind of played with my own limits, but what they did with these two rats is, so they same kind of food, everything was the same, exercise identical. But group A that was able to eat throughout the clock, they got, oddly enough, cancerous tumors. They became obese. And then the other group who's eating the same food was fine. So it's like, that was incredible. Like that blew me away.
I'd be interested to see, in addition to that, what their activity was like. Like, were they just kind of like hanging around, or were they also running on a wheel? Like, what were they doing?
Yeah.
But if they were equal and just, kind of not doing much, then definitely I would say it was probably due to like elevated blood sugar and unburnt energy. Energy has to go somewhere, and if it doesn't go anywhere, I think it can be kind of destructive for the body.
Absolutely. And yeah, so definitely fasting is number 1 for me. Sleep, and then water. I had a question for you with fasting and water kind of together. So there's 2 kind of thoughts on intermittent fasting. You have the Dr. Rhonda Patrick that says if you consume anything other than water, you're breaking your autophagy cycle. And then you have people like Dr. Thomas DeLure and Ben Greenfield who state that you can have green tea. You can't have herbal teas because herbal teas are made from fruits. But you can only have green tea, strictly black coffee, or water and salt. And anything other than that will break down your autophagy cycle, which is, in a lot of intermittent fasters, what we're going for. We want to hit that autophagy cycle, the cell cleansing, the consuming of free radicals, the reconnection of potentially cancerous cells. So when you're doing your copper water and you're doing your lemon water, both of which absolutely agree, they're incredible for you. Have you done any research that says, because technically lemon water should take you out of autophagy, and do you know if copper does?
So To answer that question, I would say that anything that would contain either sugar or anything that would raise your insulin would break your fast.
Yeah.
And so anything that would allow you to stay in a catabolic state in which cortisol is still something your body's using, I would still say that that's fasted, because you have kind of an inverse relationship between the hormones insulin and cortisol, and that as soon as you intake blood sugar, or as soon as you're taking sugar and your blood sugar comes up, that's when your body will release insulin, and then your cortisol comes down. Right? So insulin comes up, cortisol goes down. I don't know if that's clear.
No, dude, I hear you. That's good.
So as long as you can maintain a state where you don't have any blood sugar, your body's not releasing insulin, and therefore it's still utilizing the cortisol. And your cortisol levels are traditionally highest when you wake up in the morning. And that's why people will often say breakfast is an important meal, especially if you're trying to build muscle, because if you maintain that elevated cortisol level throughout the morning, then you are technically in a state of breakdown. But as long as you're not like a bodybuilder entirely concerned about maintaining every ounce of muscle mass, I don't think there's any reason to fear that, because you can always, in my opinion, muscle has muscle memory. And
absolutely
rebuild that back up. And the burning of fat will actually be more productive for you long term. And so going back to the question, copper water, no, I don't see that as breaking a fast. Lemon water, I've never actually really looked into it. I don't believe lemons have sugar in them. And if they do, it's like a very maybe small amount. But I don't believe they have sugar in them, as opposed to say something like orange or orange juice. That has a high amount of sugar. I still feel like I'm in a fasted state when I do that. And that's why coffee and tea, as long as it's black, you don't have any issues, because again, there's no sugar. You're not creating insulin response. And if anything, something like coffee or tea where you have caffeine, it actually increases your circulation. It increases your heart rate and your base
metabolism.
Yeah, your metabolism. And so therefore you amplify the fat burning effects during that fasted state.
Yeah, that's what I do. Like every morning, apparently if you really want to lose fat, there's also, just quickly going back to the Dr. Sachin Panda, what he said is that while it is true that in the morning your cortisol levels are highest and that you are in technically a breakdown phase, apparently studies on intermittent fasting has said that because when you're in a fasted state of more than 12 hours, your human growth hormone goes up, I think by 100%. That actually counteracts the effect of a breakdown in muscle, and you actually retain lean muscle mass when you're in a fasted state while breaking down fat. So that's the brilliant thing about intermittent fasting, is that it's a win-win, because your body knows, okay, like I am fasted, I need to hunt, I need to survive. Like this all comes back to our genetic memories. And so, this would be a time where if you hadn't eaten anything, you have to go hunt that buffalo. You have to go, find your food, and you can't be tired. That's one thing why a lot of people say after certain hours of fasting, usually they call it the keto flu. At first, short term, you lose energy, but then I don't know about you, but I've done like 4-day fasts, and it's weird. The first day is the hardest, and then by the second or third day, I'm like, I could never eat again. I could legitimately go for this forever. But what were you saying?
Do like a 3 or 4 day fast also, and I find that each day, usually sometime around noon, I'll get like a period for about 1 hour where my mind wants food, and all I can think about is food. But all I gotta do is stay busy during that time, and that will pass. That will pass, and then all of a sudden, that's when you start to rely on your reserves. And the other thing about fasting too is that you have all this like glycogen built up in your muscles, in your, I believe it's your liver. Your liver is where glycogen is stored. So you are then tapping in also to those glycogen stores that you have. And what that will do is the next time that you actually feed, it will make the uptake of that glycogen more efficient. And so because sugar is essentially glucose molecules. And so when those get converted into glycogen and they get stored within your muscles, and then some of it gets stored in your liver. And so if you can essentially empty the shelves, the next time the next shipment comes in, there's somewhere for it to go, as opposed to just sitting around, in the aisles or in your bloodstream.
Yeah. So it can probably definitely help. Well, actually, I know for a fact it can really help with bodybuilding, actually, like building muscle, as long as the first meal. And this is like, there's kind of two camps on this. Like Thomas DeLuer, he's more the camp of, if you're going to be intermittent fasting, or definitely long-term fasting, what you want to be having directly to break your fast, which is breakfast. I don't think anyone I didn't know that until I got into this, and it was just like, it's just like, oh my God, breakfast is break fast. What? But yeah, he said that when you're breaking your fast, it's really important to have a high fat, high protein is like, you need that. You need high protein. High fat is better than high carb. But then when you're intermittent fasting short term, if you're going to be working out on a empty stomach, you want to break your fast with carbs, because your insulin sensitivity is highest, right? After you work out, your insulin sensitivity goes up, right?
Yes.
Right. Yeah. So that's, if you are going to consume carbs, like I'm on like a low carb diet. So I save all of my carbs for dinner after my workout every single day, because my insulin sensitivity is highest. So it comes right into the muscles.
Now, maybe this is a question you can answer. It might've been something I read in the past, but I forget right now. When you're breaking that fast and when your insulin sensitivity is at its highest, would you want more of a simple carbohydrate or a complex?
That's a phenomenal question. I'm blanking. What is the difference again between simple and complex carbohydrates?
It's just the rate at which your body can utilize them. And so a simple carbohydrate is where you have more like your sugars, and it's very fast acting, but it's very short duration. And that's why they say a sugar, you get a sugar crash. You come up and then you drop.
So
are sustained.
Okay, so to answer your question, you'd want complex. You'd want something with low glycemic variability. So actually pretty much, if anything, actually after a workout, I think you can kind of go either way. Because if you're someone who you're doing what probably we're doing, and like we're like a kind of a modified keto diet, low carbohydrate, and if we are going to have carbohydrates, it's going to be a very low glycemic variability. Like I don't have anything higher than a 63 on the glycemic index. So like oats. I have legitimately, it's like if it's over 63, I'm like, okay, nah, not today. And I save that stuff, like my breads. Like I have my cheat day on Sunday, and dude, like this is how you know you're going nuts, when like you're craving like whole grain bread and honey and peanut butter. Like that's my idea of dessert, is like just toast and like coconut oil and peanut butter and honey and cinnamon. Like that's what I have every Sunday. But on a day-to-day basis, if I'm not working out that day, I'm strictly keto. Strict keto. And then if I'm working out, I do low carb. So, and always after my workout, never before, always after, where insulin sensitivity is high. I will do I really go back and forth between a chickpea pasta. So it's a pasta made of lentils and chickpeas. I actually don't know what the glycemic variability on that is. I think because chickpeas are pretty low. They're 28, right? Chickpeas are really low.
It's quite low.
Quite low. But then again, whenever you make something powdered, you increase the glycemic variability. So I'm guessing it's anywhere from a 40 to a 50. And then my sprouted steel cut oats, I think, are at a 63. So those, like, I go back and forth. One day I'll have my oatmeal pumpkin stevia cinnamon blend. It's so good, dude. It's so good. And then the other day I'll have my olive oil pasta. I actually stopped using canned sauces, and I'll take spices and like rubs, and I'll just toss in olive oil, salt, pepper, and a whole bunch of spices, and it's delicious. So that's what I do. So to answer your question, I'd like probably complex, because again, your insulin sensitivity is higher anyway. So like
you could probably get away with simple carbohydrates simply because it won't linger around in the bloodstream. Your body will immediately absorb it, and then you can introduce the complex afterwards, and then it'll give your body a bit more of a sustained blood sugar and insulin response, but like you'll be still utilizing it. And then when it comes to the other thing I was going to mention is that timing your window, like when you said you prefer a 6-hour window, I actually prefer a 6-hour window also. And I generally will go for actually one meal a day. And
really?
when I break my fast, it'll be with something small. As of lately, I've been making these like oatmeal banana like protein cookies, and I'll have like 1 or 2 of those protein cookies, and like they're super tasty, so I can't wait to eat them. But then that'll be my little snack that I use to break my fast, and I know that there's a lot of good stuff in it.
Yeah,
and
dense.
Then that'll kind of get my digestion going in a light way. And then by the time like 3 o'clock rolls around, I'll have like a nice early dinner. And then that way by like 4:30, I'm done eating. And then I try and by 5 o'clock, nothing else, just water. Right. Yeah. And then that way, by the time you go to bed, like I aim for like 9:30 to go to bed. You are not digesting anything anymore. You sleep fantastic. And you wake up not feeling bloated or anything. And I don't know if you have air conditioning where you are.
I do.
But like, you do? Okay. So like in my apartment, I don't have air conditioning. And the one thing with digestion is that there's a digestive fire essentially that is burning things up. So like that's okay in the winter. But if you have this like digestive fire going into bed while it's also 32 degrees Celsius in your apartment, it's impossible to sleep because it's hot outside, you're generating heat inside, and your body's not at an optimal sleeping temperature either. And so if you're not digesting when you go to bed, your core temperature is lower, and therefore you'll actually have a lot more of those recuperative benefits while you do sleep.
I love that you brought that up, because definitely something I do every single night is you can time it more lax than this, but I try to let's see, 2 hours before bed, I'll take a freezing shower, and that will lower my core temperatures after my workout, after my dinner. And that's about, I get in bed 8:45, 9. I'll read. I read fiction. Like I'm reading Red Rising right now. It's a really good book. And it's like sci-fi kind of thing. It's like Game of Thrones in space. It's dope.
Okay.
But like, so I'll right around 7:30, 8 o'clock, I'll take a freezing shower. And I find when I don't do that, especially like right now in the summer, that I cannot sleep if I haven't taken that freezing shower. It's so incredible, just lowering my core temperature. And then, because that's one thing you need. And do you wear socks to sleep?
Usually just underwear.
Yeah.
That's about it. Yeah, definitely not socks. To me, that's for weirdos.
Okay, so I'm that weirdo, and I'll tell you why I'm that weirdo. So Joe Rogan had a sleep scientist on, Dr. Matthew Walker, who teaches at Harvard. So yes, I'm right here. But what he said was, contrary to popular belief, not wearing socks, your body has to work harder and overtime to maintain body heat. Actually, if you wear socks, the rest of your body doesn't have to work as hard. So your core temperature is actually lower if you wear socks to bed.
So what would be the reasoning for that? Is that like just how your body has to like pump blood for circulation? Or like what is the reason for that?
I don't think it's as much of that. I think it's more you lose the most of your heat from your extremities. So your head and your feet, those are 2 areas of the body that you lose most of your heat from.
They're furthest from the heart.
Exactly. So maybe actually you're right. Maybe there's something to do with blood flow here. But you lose most of your heat from your head and your feet. And so what happens is, since you're losing all that heat, your body has to constantly increase its heat because it's losing it. So if you wear socks, you trap the heat in, and the rest of your body, your core temperature, it doesn't have to utilize that furnace that you were talking about. Because that actually, when your body's going, you're like, okay, well, what is creating more heat? The socks holding in the heat, or is it the rest of the body generating heat to counteract that balance? And it actually is the latter. Your body is at a higher heat level when it has to utilize that furnace.
That's interesting. I'm going to do a personal study on that.
Okay, it's really interesting. I got my mom to do it because my mom was having trouble one night. She was like, I couldn't get to bed. She actually told me my heat regulation was off. I put the covers on, I'd be too hot. I'd take the covers off, I'd be too cold. And I was like, just wear socks. And she did it, and it was good. It helps regulate your core temperature.
Yeah, that's interesting. Another thought you brought to mind when you take a cold shower is that it has a very strong effect on your central nervous system. That cold shower, but
your brain,
okay, yeah, that's true. But the other thing I was thinking of, which is the last point actually I thought of while we were talking that I wanted to make about simple things people can do, is your. And when you first step into a cold shower, you go, right? Yep. That intake, that sudden intake of oxygen, that is very beneficial for your body. And if we're talking about easy, simple things you can do to drastically improve your health and your life, we talked about fasting, we talked about sleep, we talked about water. The other thing is breath.
Yep.
And that actually brings another point to mind. Anyway, doing breathing exercises is very beneficial, and just even being conscious of your breath is an important thing to do, right? And even as I'm sitting here talking to you, the odd time I have to remind myself, like,
to breathe.
In full, right? Breathe in full. It'll relax you. It'll help oxygenate the brain. It'll help you think clearer. And that's actually one of the benefits I found of yoga too, is that encouraging you to breathe, especially when things get difficult, right? When you're in difficult poses, you're in a hot room, it's like, don't just think about the pose, think about your breath, just focus on your breath, and the rest will kind of take care of itself. And so that is the last thing, is just being conscious of breathing, and eventually get to the point where you've done enough conscious breathing where that full breath, that nourishing breath, actually becomes a subconscious thing, because your body's almost learned that this is good for me, continue to do this.
And habits.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. And I love that you brought up breath work, because that's something I do every morning. And I'm curious, I usually every morning I'll do alternative nostril breathing. So that's really good for balancing, if you really want to get esoteric, apparently chi energy. That's really good for like balancing your energy levels. And then after that, I will do a box breathing, 4x4x4x4. And that's again to kind of calm. And then I'll finish off my breathing techniques with a Wim Hof. You breathe in for a count of 10 or so. So your camera just went off. I don't know if that was on purpose or not. No problem. So I will, I'll breathe in for like a count of 10, and then I'll just go. And I do that for
forcing it out.
A quick force out, like count of 1, just because, so you're maintaining your CO2 levels, because when you breathe out, you're breathing out CO2, and you breathe in oxygen, and you maintain CO2 levels in the body. And apparently that it can actually get you high. Like I've got high doing this for long periods of time, but usually what I'll do is I'll do that for a minute, and then I'll hold my breath for a minute. I'll breathe fully out after a minute. I'll go, and then I'll do that for a minute, and then I'll just go fully out. And then I'll just hold my breath for a minute, and then I'll do, after a minute, I'll usually like be dying, man. And then I'll do a big inhale for 10 seconds and then hold for 10 seconds. And so that's kind of like my, my daily breath work in the morning. And also I really, so the first one is, I wanted to ask you, what breathing techniques do you use? And secondly, I wanted to mention that, I love what you said about the habit of learning to breathe can help you mentally. Because I notice I used to suffer anxiety like most people do. And ever since I've started meditating every day for the last few years and doing this breath work, I can really quickly calm myself down because it's a habit. Like if I'm overstressed, if I'm fighting with a loved one or something, I can quickly, focus on your breath, just focus on your breath. And usually within a minute, I can kind of take myself out of that mental situation. And usually I have to leave. I have to be like, I can't argue right now. Because I don't want to say something I'm going to regret and then have to build this trust again. So I'm just going to leave. I'm going to process this and I'll talk to you when I'm in a better mood. And I noticed that meditation, it's so much easier to just snap into that mind state of just, get into your breath, forget the world, just get into the present moment. So definitely that was the second comment, is just, that's been a game changer for me in my mental health and being able to regulate my emotions. But yeah, so my first question to you was, what breathing techniques do you use?
So I use some of those similar techniques. Some of them have, some of the ones that you've mentioned, I've learned them in yoga, and so they just have slightly different names. Having to relearn how to breathe as opposed to reverse breathing, I would say, is number one, because a lot of people subconsciously reverse breathe just because, and where when you inhale, you actually, they suck their stomach in. And I think a lot of it has to do with subconscious. People are worried about appearances. And so they don't want to, when you inhale, right, inhale into your belly and really let your belly expand. And then when you exhale, let it come down. Whereas like, even I know, like sometimes I'm worried that my belly is like sticking out, like I'm pushing my stomach, right? But it's like, but that's okay, right? And so just for me, relearning how to breathe and to getting away from that reverse breathing pattern has been extremely beneficial. And so breathing deep into my diaphragm is one of the things that I would say I just incorporate into a lot of my breathing exercises, learning to like inflate or like utilize the diaphragm. And that's something that gets shut down when you reverse breathe, because you are constricting everything when you inhale, whereas you want to allow it freedom to move, right? So really breathe deep into your belly and allow your diaphragm to expand. And then I know personally, I've had times where like, even though I'm inhaling, I feel like my breath isn't coming up. And it is because I'm holding a lot of tension down here. And so if I can relax the diaphragm, relax the stomach, and then fully breathe in, I actually feel the breath coming right up to the very top of my lungs. And even the upper portion of my lungs, I can feel it expanding as opposed to just the lower portion. So there's that. There's also the, I don't remember what the yoga name for it is, but they often refer to it as the Darth Vader breath, where you breathe like you're kind of making the sounds of Darth Vader. I don't know if the mic will pick this up, but
I can hear it. Is that just an intense nasal breath? Oh,
in your throat. You create a slight constriction in your throat. And honestly, just doing that for like 2-3 cycles, I feel my whole body warming up. And that's one of those things where when I am prepared to do something like going for a bike ride or doing something physically where I know like, okay, I need to like kind of amp up some energy and really get some like energy moving in my body. I'll do that, like that Darth Vader breath where I constrict things a little bit, and it really creates heat throughout. And it also, if I'm having issues again where I feel like I'm not breathing fully, sometimes that's one of my tricks to actually open things up. It's weird in that slight constriction can actually allow things to open up. And I don't know if it's because you're consciously being aware of where your breath is going, but it allows things to open up. And so that's just something that I would recommend people try if they're just looking for different breathing techniques, along with the alternate breathing that you talked about, right? Just utilizing, the left versus the right side of the body. And like you said, the movement of chi throughout your body. And there's two different paths for chi to move in. And if you know, like I think it's called the caduceus, where it's like the spirals kind of coming up the body. That's where when you do reverse breathing, you allow things to circulate through different sides of the body.
That's interesting. I like the picture you painted, because that is the sign of medicine.
Yes.
It's the snake coiled around the thing. Now we're getting into like secret societies and stuff. But
well, that's the staff of Hermes, right? And when you look what that represents,
and DNA,
right? Medicine, there's a lot to it, right? So I mean, you could have a full discussion just on that.
100%, yeah.
So yeah, the alternate breathing, other breathing exercises. When I exercise, especially when I'm doing yoga and I'm doing like core activity, I make sure that I'm, again, expanding the whole part of your stomach, but that I'm also actively contracting the entire abdominal area. And I find that that's improved a lot of things as far as like allowing the full abdomen to activate as opposed to just the upper abdomen. But a lot of these things are personal, and that's just why like I do them. But there's one thing that you brought up, and I just wanted to touch on it before I forget about it. When you talked about you inhale oxygen and then you exhale CO2. Yeah. Right. So let's look at the chemistry of that for 1 second. Right.
All right, Bill Nye.
You inhale O2. You exhale CO2. So the difference is that you're exhaling a carbon atom. The O2 is still there, whether you inhale it or you exhale it. O2 is still present, but there's the C in front of it when you exhale. Where does that C come from? That C, carbon, is what we are made up of. But when you look at sugars and starches, they're all carbon chains. And so that is one of the things that, along with fasting and controlling your blood sugar, if you are having full breaths, that is one of the other ways that you can lower your blood sugar, because you have all these carbon structures within your blood. And when you exhale fully, you're getting more carbon dioxide out, and you're shuttling carbon molecules out from your blood. And so when you do full breathing, especially full exhaling, you're actually reducing your blood sugar by itself. I don't know if that made sense.
No, it totally does. And the reason why I look to the side is I remember it was not too long ago. I think I was going to the gym or something. Obviously, this was longer ago than I thought, because I haven't been to the gym, like the actual gymnasium, in like 2 months, because I've been working out from home. Mm-hmm. But I was listening to a podcast, and I forget what was mentioned, but they were talking about breathing. And the person who was speaking to Joe, I think, he said that when we breathe, it is the largest creator or largest user. I think it was calories. I think he was saying that breath is the largest contributor of lost calories, burned calories per day. Is that true? Or am I remembering this correctly?
That's what that, because again, when you exhale, especially when you breathe in full, the more oxygen you can bring in, the more CO2 you can likewise push out, right? Because there has to be an equal exchange. If you're taking only little sips of air, you're only bringing in a small amount of oxygen, so you're only getting out a small amount of CO2. So if you bring in a lot of oxygen, you can get a lot of CO2, and therefore your base metabolic rate, without even doing physical activity, you're already increasing your base metabolic rate. Or utilizing energies and calories. And then that's why cardiovascular exercise is very good for you, is A, because it exercises your heart, and your heart is a muscle. Yeah. But it's also increasing your heart rate, it's increasing your oxygen intake, and it's increasing your carbon dioxide output.
Okay. Interesting. I do want to pivot, because I really wanted to talk to you about this whole COVID situation. Like, we're doing a hard pivot here. Okay. So yeah, before we get into COVID, is there any last things you want to bring up or talk about in terms of kind of health, kind of the whole health realm, stuff like that?
One more thing.
Yeah, man.
Especially the time of year we're in, being summertime, and we've had like just absolutely beautiful weather. I'm guessing where you are, you've also, not that far, like 2 hours away from each other.
Gorgeous, man. Incredible.
Very nice, and lots of, clear skies and sunshine. And I don't know if it's picking up on the camera right now, but I got a bit of color from yesterday.
Yep, I can see that. Just
getting out in the sun, just taking in some sunlight. Because it's your vitamin D. That's where you get a lot of vitamin D. But when you think about it, we are not all that different from plants in that, like, plants need air in the form of CO2 and O2, depending on the time of day. They need water, they need ground, they need earth, but they also need light. And I think that as humans, that's one of the other things we need sunlight. And sunlight just does such remarkable things for your body. Obviously limited, because you don't want to expose yourself to high, I believe it's UVB rays that you got to watch out for. But anyway, UV rays, you don't want too high of an exposure, and you definitely want to limit your amount of exposure in one sense, so that you don't cook your skin. But just sunlight in general is very good for you. Things that you find interesting is when you read fiction, you like to kind of take some parallels from fiction and see what applies to real life.
For sure.
What is one of the strongest superheroes in the comic book universe?
Are you referring to Mr. Superman?
I am referring to Mr. Superman. It's his main source of energy.
Yeah, it is the sun. That's true.
To the point where I believe it was either prior to Kingdom Come or prior to the All-Star Superman series. He leaves Earth for some time, and he goes just to spend time. Hold
on. Are we getting into spoilers? Because I have All-Star Superman, and that's like on my back catalog, and same with Kingdom Come. Are we getting into spoilers right now, or just a side note?
I just wanted to make the point of what exactly that sunlight, how strong it actually made him.
Got it. So keep going. Sorry for interrupting.
To the point, he spent so much time in the sun that when he finally returned to Earth, not even kryptonite could harm him. He was immune to greatest weakness, kryptonite. And I know people will say that's just comics, but I think that there is some truth in that. And that even in the name of Superman, he is just a Superman. And us as humans, maybe we're not going to be flying around. Maybe we're not going to be immune to bullets.
For now.
But I think that for now, right. I think there is a lot to be said in that, and that what sunlight can do for you. And this is maybe a nice transition into the discussion about COVID, because they've said that come summertime, they expect things to get a lot better. And one of the things is UV exposure, and that even at my work, one of the things that we use to disinfect water is UV light. We have UV lamps that disinfect water, and it is an essential part of our process. And so UV light does so much good for you, even from an immune perspective. It will strengthen your immune system in order to fight off bacteria and viruses. And there was an interesting thing I read, this was months ago, but we know ozone is also very good as a disinfectant, right? And I'm pretty sure in some places they'll vent ozone to kind of like disinfect like large areas. Again, that's another thing that they use to disinfect water. When you have exposure to sun, those UV rays penetrate your blood and convert a small amount of oxygen into ozone. And so right within your blood, you have disinfecting properties just from exposure to sun.
Interesting.
Yeah. Something worth, for people who are interested, something I think that's at least worth researching, the immune benefits of getting sun exposure.
Well, I know that people are speaking right now, and this is more alternative media. This is not mainstream media, but there's a few doctors, one of which is named Dr. Buttar. who thinks that come summer, it will get better because vitamin D. But he says at the same time, since our immune systems are so weak right now because we haven't been outside, like my mom's, her accountant hasn't literally left his house in, I think she said 6 weeks. Wow. Hasn't went outside because he's afraid of COVID so much. And like my mom and we're doing gardening, we're going for bike rides. Like, you know, like I personally have slightly alternative views on the whole COVID situation. So I'm not as, I think, fearful and in that kind of negative fear state, which also, like, talk about things that are going to destroy your immune system coming out of quarantine: lack of vitamin D, lack of exercise, high cortisol levels, stress response from not being around loved ones. A lot of the time, if you don't have a healthy relationship with your loved ones, that's going to cause stress. Your usual outlets of getting away from yourself are gone because you don't have ways to get out of the house and stuff. So if you don't have Twitter and you're seeing a lot of people binging TV shows, playing video games all day, like that's something I've made sure I do not do. I give myself 7 o'clock. It's like 7 o'clock hits, I'm allowed to play video games, watch TV, but like during the day, I'm doing podcasts, I'm creating videos, I'm, you know, landscaping, I'm going to work. I make sure that I'm utilizing that time so I don't slip into that just mindless consumption. I don't want to stay creative.
Wonderful, sorry to cut you off. It's a wonderful opportunity for productivity and for doing things that are constructive, which are very good for your mental health. And when you're, because, you know, the more you feel productive, the more you feel accomplished, the more you just feel, you know, that those feelings of self-worth and just overall happiness. And that in itself has a positive effect
on the immune system.
On your immune system, yeah.
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 Like I know almost every single time I've got sick in the last year, it's been after a highly traumatic episode where I had like a big fight with someone and I was emotionally very upheaved and I was not level and calm. And so I just noticed that like directly in my life, like the effect stress has on me is astronomical. It is no joke. No matter what I do, I could be doing everything the same. If my stress levels are too high for a chronic period of time, it is devastating. So yeah, that's one thing I wanted to talk about is, and I love that you kind of did my transition for me because I wanted to ask, this is what I asked my guest yesterday. Essentially, yeah, how do you think this lockdown is going to affect both yourself and people in our society individually and our society as a collective? Like, what do you think this lockdown, this whole COVID situation, how do you think it's going to affect people individually and our global society, positive and negative, both sides of that?
So I'm glad you used the word lockdown because the general word that people use is quarantine, which I highly disagree with, because when you look at what is the definition of quarantine.
That was a subconscious slip. I didn't even realize I said that. Yeah, that's funny.
The definition of quarantine is isolating sick people. And so when the media and people themselves talk about how they are in quarantine, you are in effect subconsciously telling yourself you are sick.
Wow, the power of language. The affirmations.
So even I had a friend texted me today and he says, "Oh, me and my family were in quarantine." And it's like, so you are subconsciously telling yourself that you are sick, and the things that you tell yourself and affirm to yourself often become true. Right. And so that's why I don't like the using of the word quarantine, because I think that is in effect lying to yourself. Isolation, that makes sense. Lockdown, that makes sense, right? I mean, although like we are luckily where we are, we do have the freedom to leave the house as long as we do so responsibly. To a certain limit we are. And now that things are opening up, the lockdown seems like it's lightening. But I think that it is going to have, I mean, you hear people talking about the new norm, And I don't even like talking about that, because you are essentially accepting that this will become the new norm, and that like handshakes can't be a thing. And like,
I'm not giving that power.
Yeah,
I'm not going to give that my thoughts, my energy, because like at a spiritual level, sure, you can speak about law of attraction, right? You know, what you focus on comes into play. But even at a non-spiritual level, just like what you just said, accepting things as if they've already come to be, it is not already set in stone that will be the new norm. And if that is, that's unacceptable to me. Like,
it is. People tell themselves that's what it'll be. If people say it's the new norm, then it will become, whether it's regulated, whether it's put into law or not, people will self-impose this in their life as a new norm. And I think that is a very, that can be a potentially very harmful thing.
Yeah, very dangerous.
Just how your life plays out for the next few months, few years, duration of however long things go on. But when you think about, say there's like an army going to fight a battle, you don't tell the captains, they don't tell the soldiers like, this is something we're gonna lose, so just accept it. You motivate the people, right? You tell them that if to fight until your last breath, if that's what it means.
Even if you don't believe it's true, and that's the mark of a leader. Is creating reality, not succumbing to reality as it's coming at you. Courage
is incredibly powerful in allowing people to overcome great odds.
Absolutely.
Right? So if you just tell yourself, like I tell myself, even before this whole coronavirus thing, I tell myself I am never going to die. Ever. And I know some people might laugh at that, but that's what I believe. I believe it here and I believe it here. I am never going to die. And there might come a time in my life where I feel like I am ready to pass on from this earth and leave this physical body. And at that time, I will allow it. But I am, in my mind and in my heart, I am never going to die. I plan to live forever. I plan to stay forever young. And as long as I continue to believe that, I feel like maybe it won't entirely become true, but I feel to a large extent it will. And so if you wake up and you tell yourself, today I slept great. I like to tell myself that in the morning. I like to ask myself, how did I sleep? And generally I say, I slept amazing last night. I slept good. I feel rested. I feel like I have energy. I feel like today's going to be a good day. I feel healthy. I feel strong. You tell yourself those things, watch what happens throughout the rest of your day. You are going to start doing things that you might not have even believed that you could have done. Not to say that you had doubts, but you just wondered, is this something I can do? Even when you go to the gym, if you tell yourself, today, I'm going to aim for a PR, right? If you keep that in your mind, especially if you tell yourself that before you go to sleep. I'm a big believer in telling yourself things, imagining things before you go to sleep, so that while you sleep, your body and your mind can subconsciously work on things, so that the next day it is actually a plausible thing, right? And so you tell yourself, this is what I'm going to do, and I'm just going to try doing it no matter what. I'm going to give it my best attempt. And even when it comes to health and taking care of yourself, we can only do as much as we can, but we make our best attempt. Just because you could get hit by a car or you could be in a plane crash doesn't mean you should stop making that attempt to live a healthy life. Make your best attempt. Live a physically good life. Emotionally, mentally, try and do as much as you can in those regards. Spiritually, make that best attempt to be the best, strongest version that you can be, and just take things as they come.
Yeah, I know, like my mom and I, we call it a positive brainwashing. We talk about this every morning. We're like we essentially, like, people call it echo chambers, right? Like Joe Rogan talks about this a lot. The idea that we're all in echo chambers, and our belief patterns, we surround ourselves with people that agree with us. For better or for worse, it's just the way it is. As human beings, we resonate, and in resonance, we attract, and then we solidify. Right? So, and that's how you get people where you'll talk to some people and you have a worldview that you think is objective, right? And then you talk to someone else, like in Toronto, you bump into someone and they're screaming and yelling about something that happened on the news, and you're like, are we living in the same world? Like, I fundamentally perceive these events differently than you do. And I know, like, one thing that that I was very aware of, and I started doing about 3 years ago, is saying, it was just something at first is like turning habitual sayings that are solidified as beliefs. Like, because the first time you get up in the morning, you say, I had a great sleep, you might believe it, but if you don't believe it, you're not going to believe it. And it's like, it's every day, it's that repetition that creates that habit. And then your beliefs are habits fundamentally. Your conscious mind can create the habit, but until something is a habit, you're not actually going to believe it. It's why the first time an idea comes in your head, it's a bit malleable. People can throw you off pretty easily. It happens to every person. And that's why people say, pick your friends. Be very careful who you tell. This is something that Jordan Peterson says. Be very careful who you tell good news to. Because if you haven't solidified that, if you haven't thought about it enough and someone doubts you, I guarantee, even if you don't fully doubt yourself, there will be this little sting in the back of your head. And I remember there's seeds of doubt. And I remember like, I'm a very excitable human being. I come up with these crazy ideas constantly. My head is like a circus. It's constantly thinking. And these ideas will come. And when I was younger, I made the mistake of too quickly sharing them with people. And then when you're an idea person and people aren't, and also that belief in yourself can be confronting to people. And they don't want you to succeed if they haven't succeeded in their own life. And that's why, again, it's so important. Pick your friends wisely. That's why, I've chosen like you in my life, my friends like Mozid, Gabriel, because the one commonality is we might disagree on politics, we might disagree on our spiritual beliefs, we might disagree on a million things, but we're all trying to improve. And because we're all trying to improve, we're all cheering each other on fundamentally because we feel like we're in the same thing. Where, yeah, when I was younger, I made the mistake of telling the wrong people the right thing. And when I didn't have that confidence yet, when I didn't believe that thing because I hadn't said it a million times yet, I'd be like, I'm going to be a professor and I'm going to teach university. I'm going to be a public speaker. And before I had done that, it was really easy to push me off base because I hadn't solidified that yet. But now it's like every time I meet someone and they say, oh, like, what are you going to do? I'm like, oh, I actually have changed my mind. I no longer want to be a professor. Now it's YouTube. I'm going to have a successful podcast. And like, even in some ways, I'm just like, I have a successful podcast. What's the definition of success? That's up to me. And right now it's successful to me, but pretty soon it's going to be successful to you too. There's going to be a point where that transition it's going to be impossible to argue the success of that thing because it's going to meet the definition of success by other people as well as myself.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's like I have for the last 3 years affirmatively stated who I am to myself and other people as I meet them, and constantly creating this habit of thinking that now I have actively brainwashed myself into my future to the point where if people doubt it, it's almost like, how did you come to that conclusion? Of course it's going to happen. Like, and some people might look at that and be like, isn't that a lie? Because it hasn't happened yet. And it's like, it's just as much of a lie pretending like it's not going to work out as it is believing it's going to work out, because we haven't seen either of those things yet. But yeah, go on.
Yeah. So their doubt is weak in comparison to your resolve because you have solidified and strengthened that resolve. And you recognize potential. And when you recognize potential and you see something for not just what it is, but what it can be.
Exactly.
And you you invest and concentrate your efforts into that. And concentrated effort, concentrated attention, when it's applied to something that has potential, there's extreme room for growth. And I mean, you look at just the smallest seed, you give it what it needs, and it can become an enormous tree that lives for hundreds of years, right? Everything starts from small beginnings. Even
Exactly.
These wildly successful podcasts, these, wildly successful businesses, they all had small beginnings, humble roots, right?
Mm.
And again, I like that term, humble roots, because something that is just rooted can be very easily uprooted, but give it the time and attention to create firm roots, and good luck trying to pull that sucker out of the ground. That thing is there to stay, and it will just continue to grow.
Exactly. So I was just piggybacking off of your idea, but yeah, I think the importance of, reaffirming those things, even if you don't believe them yet, because I didn't believe it at first. I knew I was trying to trick myself into one day believing. Like, do you know the artist Sting? He was in the Police.
Yeah.
So there's a song, an incredible song called "If You Love Someone, Set Them Free" that he wrote, and I remember hearing that song and I went, "Wow, he's a wise man." Like, I don't know anyone at that level except for like a Buddhist monk that can truly set something free if they love it enough, like a person, right? Mm. And then I looked up an interview with him and I laughed because he said, when I wrote that song, I didn't believe that, but I knew that if I sung that every night, hopefully one day I would. And that stuck with me. Like that was the genesis of that idea. And I said, holy fuck, even Sting, one of the most successful musicians on the fucking planet, needs to trick himself into a belief too. So anyone who says, oh yeah, I believed in myself from day one, it's like, no, you didn't. Bullshit. No, you didn't. It's like you built yourself. People always say you build yourself. You don't come out fully formed. I think that's the whole point of life itself. You don't come out perfect. It's like you're always perfect in the eyes of the maker, let's say. You're always perfect in the eyes of God because you're exactly at all times where you need to be. But in terms of your final form, like a Dragon Ball Z reference or something, it's like that takes your entire life. There's a reason why everything changes. There's a reason why everything dies. There's a reason why everything grows. It's because what's the point of a life without change? And what I was going to...
Without challenge too.
Without challenge. And I also, this just spurred something that I loved what you said, because I fundamentally agree with you. When people say, like, because you said in my scenario, a lot of people look at people as they are or what they have as what is going to be. I actively do not share that point of view in life. When it comes to my friends, my family, I see people as on a journey of growth. No matter who you are today, I know you're not going to be the same person in a year, for better or for worse.
Yep.
And I take the same consideration to myself. I know where I am in business, where I am in entrepreneurship, where I am in knowledge and understanding. It's not fixed. Where I am in a year is going to be vastly different. So I'm going to that's why I speak the way I speak, because I'm not speaking as a reflection of as you know me now. I'm creating my future. I'm speaking as if I am the person I want to be, knowing that if I do that enough, I will become the person I want to be. And I'm not that person yet. At 24, almost 25 years old, I am not the person I want to be yet, but I'm fucking a lot closer than I was a year ago. And I know in another year, I'll look back and I'll be proud of where I've gotten to the point where I'll probably not even be who I want to be when I'm on my deathbed. Because that's the whole point. Anyone who, like...
One point about that. One of my favorite principles about physics is momentum.
I love that principle too. Go on.
And that all you got to do is get the ball rolling. Just
Absolutely.
Get it. And like things will snowball. Things will continue to grow. And just sometimes with momentum, you just need to keep giving it little little, bursts of energy, but you continue to do it and things will become unstoppable to a certain extent. And
Absolutely.
yeah. So like just being able to like generate momentum daily. And I mean, like, obviously there's days for rest, but after you take a rest, eat it. But when you're done resting, get back to it. Right.
And momentum in a macro way. Like momentum is over a long period of time and a short period of time. Like what you said, like you have to get the ball rolling, but it can take months, weeks, years to get that. Like even like in this YouTube channel, like I was telling my mom the other day, I was like, oh man, like, it's the channel's taking off. Right. And she's like, oh, like, like how many subscribers, whatever. And I told her, and then she was like, oh, great. Like it's not that much, but for me, like, I have my goal, like 1 million subscribers. That's my goal. Right. But like right now, it's like, I'll never be here again. Like I have 8 subscribers. I started my channel a week ago.
Wow.
I have eight subscribers in a week. Right. And then I have like, I think 300 views or something.
Yeah.
And a lot of people, they're like, how are you happy with that? Like, oh, your goal is 1 million. You had 8. How are you happy? It's like, I'm happy with the journey because I know I'm not going to be here forever. And I don't want to be that guy who was so frustrated with the fact that I didn't have 1 million subscribers until I did, that looking back, I was miserable the entire way. It's like every time I get a new subscriber, man, I'm like, fuck yeah, I got a new subscriber. It doesn't matter if it's 1 or 2. Every time I'm like, that's dope. I'm noticing every day the views are getting a bit bigger. First video, 2 views. Second video, 4 views. I just got a video that had 100 views. And it was like, this is a week, man. And it's just momentum. Like you said, it's little. But I'm already noticing in this week, sure, I'm not at 100 subscribers yet. But believe me, I'll call you when I'm at 100 and I'll be like, I got there, bitch. Like, you know what I mean? Like, people will doubt you because everyone's so fixated on where people are at, where they're at, where businesses are at. It's like, no, that's the wrong angle. Where do you want them to be? Even your friends. It's like you. It's like, I love you, man. But it's like who you are today is not who you are going to be in a year. And I'm thinking that on the positive, not the negative. It's like some people may be like, oh, Aaron might change. I'm like, I hope Aaron changes. I hope that our friendship evolves, grows, changes, becomes different and just different. Because hopefully I'm not the same person I am in a year. So if you're how I want you to be, that's not going to be a good fit in a year. So it's like, I want to grow together, and I want everything in my life to grow and be a reflection of my personal growth.
Change is the opposite of stagnation, right? And is anything stagnant good, right? Like change is
Decays.
Good. Yeah, decay. And that's where like as an individual, myself and other people, if you are conscious of who you are and who you want to be, it's a continuous process of refinement and of building up, as opposed to if you are unconscious and you're not actively working toward those things, you might take those good qualities you have and they might just become diluted and weak. Yeah. Right. But it's like, apply some effort and refine them, strengthen them, make the potency, right? Make those ideas more potent and more energy. Again, back to physics. If you take, if you can have a small mass and all it takes is a small amount of energy to get that ball rolling. But say you have a great idea, something that's huge from a physics perspective, that could be a large mass.
I love that. That's a good metaphor.
Now, when we talk about energy, there's 2 types of energy. There's kinetic energy, which means something is already moving, but there's potential energy. And potential and kinetic energy, once you take friction into account, they're essentially equal. And so when you take something that is massive, yes, it's going to take a lot of energy to get that ball rolling, but once it gets rolling, it has such great potential energy that once it gets moving, its kinetic energy will be just as great. And friction, once that ball gets moving, friction will essentially become irrelevant.
Yeah, like this is what I've been thinking about. Like, because obviously, like when something new enters your life, if you're someone like me, you have this like very overactive mind. You either focus on a million thoughts, each with like a certain percentage, or you focus on one thought with all that. And that's what that's what meditation you're trying to do. You're trying to focus your energy in one area. So I like right now, all my focus is going on YouTube. And there's this principle that Jordan Peterson talks about, and it's as things rise, they rise faster, and as things descend, they descend faster. And that's also a thing I'm paying attention to. I'm like, it's going to be harder getting my first 1,000 subscribers than it is to go from 500,000 to 1 million, guaranteed.
Yep.
Because, and so really it's not, the scary thing is not the million, is getting to 1,000. And then because every road I hit, every goalpost I hit, it gets easier because the momentum goes. So it's just like you said, you just need to get it moving, because you get one subscriber, they tell a friend, you have 2 now, and then they both tell friends, and then like it's everything in life is exponential. Like not many things are actually linear, like chaos theory, right? Everything's chaos theory. It's like you can't predict how quickly things will change and the impact things will have. And that is so inspiring to me in life, because as also, if you think about it, the first, like that theory applies everywhere. The first 7 years of your life, the changes you had were slower. And then as you grow, the shifts I've had in the last year have been greater than like the rest of my life combined. Mm-hmm. And then like, obviously this can shift depending on your outlook on life. You get some people where they change a lot in the first half of their life, and then as they get embittered, they become the same person and they solidify. But if you can allow yourself to be open-minded, you will shift and grow so quickly over in incrementally smaller periods of time, like to the point where you're getting like, probably some people in your 40s where it's like every day there's this subtle shift.
Yeah. So one of the things that I really like about yoga, just touching on something you said, is that when I practice yoga, for me, there are 3 things that I'm working on while I'm going through my physical practice: strength, flexibility, and balance. Right? I think balance is important. Balance in your views, balance in the way you think, balance in the way you live. Strength, I would say, is important. It's better to be strong than to be weak. But the other one is flexibility, and learning to be flexible. Because when you become rigid in your life, you become rigid in thought, you become rigid in body, you become rigid in just kind of where you are in that state of life. And so learning to be flexible, learning to roll with the punches, learning to kind of move as things are, that's where I believe that you can have a lot of growth while maintaining resilience. And they say, like trees, when a tree blows in the wind, it's good that it bends as opposed to snaps.
Yeah.
Right. You'd rather be able to bend a little bit, and then when the wind stops, you come back upright.
Yeah.
And so, that was just a comment I wanted to make as far as like change as opposed to just becoming stuck in one way.
Yeah, no, I love that, and that's a great place to wrap up this conversation. We're in the last 15 minutes. So in the last 15 minutes of every podcast, we go into the last final questions. Kind of like 20 questions, but there's 6 of them.
Okay.
6 questions. But yeah, take as much time or as little time when you're answering these. So my first question is, what is your intention for the next 5 years, and where do you see yourself?
Intention for the next 5 years. I mean, I have some short-term goals in mind. Financially, I have some short-term goals from a hobby perspective and from business perspective. I started up a small business in just doing some photography, just because that's something I really enjoy. Not just with cameras, but a lot with drones. I really like flying drones, and
Wow.
I mean, I'm going to do it whether I'm making a living off of it or not. But I feel like there are services I can offer to people, and if I can get a little something out of it, and also turning it into a bit of a side business, small business, it'll challenge me to take on projects that I would never have thought to shoot, and to learn different angles to be creative. And so I guess working on those hobbies and small business, those are my short-term goals. But my long-term goal is ultimately just to continue to develop my creativity.
I love that. Yeah.
And wherever that creativity takes me, that's exciting. I don't really have an end destination, but I'm hopeful that it'll take me somewhere interesting and fulfilling.
Man, I love that answer, because that's definitely like, because when I was younger, I had these like hard goals. Like, I was going to be a millionaire, 100%. I was good, and not for selfish reasons. It's more freedom. Like I'm very rebellious at heart. I have a natural disinclination to authority. And so independence, absolutely independent. And I know, like, I don't want a boss. And I want the kind of life where, if I feel like going to Costa Rica with my wife and my kids one day, I want to just be able to go. I don't want to feel constrained by having a boss that needs me to work and stuff. So like for me, it's like the money, because people look at you weird. When you say you want to make a lot of money, like people think money is evil. It's like, no, money is not evil. Money is just freedom. Money is the physical representation of human will. It's the ability to gain what you want.
Money is like tools. It is what you do with it.
Exactly. And so for me, it's like, I want to build a school. I want to build a charity. I want to help kids in South America. Like I was doing like Big Brother, Big Sister all this year. Like I'm very drawn to like mentorship, helping kids. Right. And again, freedom is such a massive thing. I want to be able to go to yoga retreats like twice a year. I want to be able to show my kids the world. I want to be able to have the freedom to not have the financial stress on my relationship with my partner. I don't know if she's going to be my wife or partner or 2-year partner. I don't care, whatever. And that's what I mean is like I had all these hard goals, and now I'm like, take me on a journey, universe. Like as long as it's enjoyable, as long as the enjoyment I get out of it outweighs the challenges. I love challenge, but it needs to improve me. It needs to give me something that I'm looking for. And so I love what you said. It's like at the end of the day, all I want to do really is grow in every sense of the word. Grow my finances, grow myself, grow my ability to withstand what life hands me, because I want bigger challenges, because with bigger challenges come bigger rewards. And sometimes there's a saying like life always gives you what you're ready for. And I definitely believe that. I don't feel like any challenge that life presents you outweighs your ability for you to accomplish it. And so I love what you said. That was that. I just really like what you said. And my next question is, this is a fun one. What would shock most people to learn about you? Everyone has something.
I would say in some degree self-doubt and weakness, in that we all have some degree of like doubt of like, oh, I shouldn't say that. I don't know.
No, absolutely. We all
like you always have some reservation, right? And I think that reservations can be healthy, but then just as long as you've prepared yourself, and with that preparation, you have confidence and you are able to put aside hesitation, you can do great things. And so that's just the one thing. Even when I go snowboarding, when I go biking, if I approach a feature that I'm a little unsure of, I approach it with hesitation, right? And so what I got to do is I've learned to just kind of like, just stop for a sec, survey what it is I'm about to try, right? Build a game, develop a game plan, and then reapproach what it is that I was approaching with some hesitation, reapproach it with the game plan and with some confidence, and just follow through. And it's always worked out. I haven't had a situation, or in snowboarding and in biking, I've done some amazing things in the last few months just on my mountain bike that I wouldn't believe I could have done. But again, I had to, when I approached those features, I got off my bike, I did a couple walkthroughs of what it was I was about to actually ride, and then form a game plan in my head, and then just commit and do it. And yeah, it's worked out so far.
Man, absolutely. There's like two things that came to mind. The first is that, like, I love how you said we all have self-doubt and fear, because we do. Because also, I think self-doubt comes from a very real place, because I think in some respects, it's just a heightened fear response. It's a hijacked fear response. As natural, it has us, you know, when there's a cliff, not just going willy-nilly and jumping off. You know what I mean? Like, we all had these primordial fear responses, but there's certain things like a lack of confidence mixed with fear will create a lot of self-doubt. And also, the only way to get past self-doubt is to just jump in, which is the second thing that you said that I loved, is like, that's one thing I've learned too, is if I'm afraid of something, accept the fact, like, yeah, I'm afraid of this. Like, full on, like, don't deny it, because I used to deny it all the time. No, I'm not afraid. Like, if there's girls around and stuff, no, I'm not afraid. But it's like a shit in my pants right now. But it's like, when you're afraid, admit you're afraid, and then just jump. Like, that's what I do now. Like, if I'm afraid to do something, I just say, okay, jump in, let's just see how it goes. And accepting that my first time at bat, accepting the fact I will suck. Not saying I'll always suck, but accepting if I suck.
Yeah, there's a healthy acknowledgement of outcome that you should have. You know, have a healthy acknowledgement that there could be consequence, or that there could be, things might not turn out the way you hoped the first time, but try again.
And that's the great thing, is like, you know, again, with this, like, this YouTube thing for me, like, you know, you should see my first videos, man. They're not very good, but it's like my new ones, like, I'm like, look at how, like, to me, I'm just very proud of how far I've come. And it's like, I wouldn't be able to get to where I am now if I didn't just jump in before. And now I use that same mindset for everything. I allow myself room to fail, no matter what it is. If it's a new job, if it's learning how to garden, if it's learning how to do anything. Like, because before I just avoid things I thought I would be bad at. And now I'm like, no, like, maybe I can't be great at everything. Maybe I can't be masterful at everything, but I can be good at anything.
Yes. Yeah.
And I've taken that to heart. Like, I taught myself how to sing. And I've been singing now for like 5 months. And dude, it was rough at first, man. Like, it did not sound good. And I'm not saying I'm great. I'm not even saying I'm good yet, but I'm better.
You like where you're at.
I accept where I'm at, and I have fun because I know I'm allowed to not be good. Instead of being like, oh no, I have to be good. I have to be good. I have to be good. It's like, no. It's okay. It's okay. Where you're at right now is okay. You're just improving. That's it. And I promise you,
that's the fun part.
It is, because
not being great means that you have things to learn, and in that learning, there's excitement and
look forward to. You have things to look forward to. Yeah. And so, like, that's something I live by now, just in all things. And so my next question to you is that, how old are you right now? 27, 28?
28. I'll be 29 in just over a month.
I like how you like to see your watch, but do you have the date on your watch? Or do you
Yeah.
just have the, okay, I thought you were looking at the time and like just like such an automatic response.
I don't really worry about time as long as my phone battery will live. I think I'm at about 12% left. So
Good. We have 4 minutes left.
Okay.
So if you could go back in time and give one piece of advice to the 20-year-old you, what would it be?
Another very good question. Make a list of what's important and just concentrate on those things. And the things that are unimportant, just let them go. And I'm not saying let go of them permanently, let go of them for now.
Like almost like, do you mean like trust your intuition? Like know that what feels important now is important now?
Yeah, intuitively know what is important right now. And I mean, there's a lot of things that, you know, like I'm like you, and then I have a lot of things in my mind that I want to do, but it's like, think about what it is you want, what it is of all those things that will make you happiest. And something I've also been thinking about lately is, of all those things, pick one of them that will also contribute, because if you can contribute in some way, that will bring a lot back. And so make a list of those things. What will make me happy? What can I do to help others? And then take those things and just really kind of like focus on them. And then all the rest of the stuff, just kind of let it go. And some of it you'll be happy to let go of for good. And some of it you'll be okay with just letting go for now, because all things have their due time.
Yeah, their season.
Especially if there's something that will actually bring value to your life, it will have its own due time. It's just, it might not be right now. And so don't struggle against something that in the moment just seems futile or unnecessary. Sorry. Yeah, I'm at 10%. Something that is just maybe unnecessary right now. Don't put too much effort if what you put in doesn't seem like what you're going to get out of it now. Apply it to something that will be more important, and that you'll find you'll get more satisfaction out of. I hope
No, dude, essentially you stated that well, but to like really clarify, just like follow your heart.
Follow your heart. Yeah. Follow anything else.
There you go. And so lastly, this is one of my favorites. I like asking people this. If a genie could answer one question for you, what would it be?
Genie can answer one question for me right now. It would be, where do I go? What do I do? Because sometimes I sometimes feel like I'm sometimes walking around a little bit in the dark.
Yep.
But at the same time, maybe that's
part of the process.
That's part of the process. And when you're stumbling around in the dark, as soon as you see that kind of glimmer of light, you'll know which way to start walking. And so, maybe it's good I don't have a genie, because then it's like a video game, you know, it's more fun when you don't have all the cheat codes, you know, it's more fun just trying to navigate with what you got. And I appreciate that.
I hear you. Great answer. And lastly, where can people find you? Like social media, YouTube, where can people find you if they want to look you up?
Sure. So I am on Facebook. Currently, it's just deactivated because I was taking a little bit of a hiatus, as well as it was deactivated a little bit on Instagram. But in the last week, I reactivated my Instagram account. The Jump to Lightspeed is my account handle. I made it years ago, even before Star Wars was.
Dude, I like that, man.
But I don't know, it means a lot to me, and I'm glad I picked it. So the Jump to Lightspeed. The small business that I started is called 1.6 Creative. I have an Instagram account for that, which is something that I am slowly building up. I do have a YouTube channel also. If you just search my name, Aaron Nowak, I started my creative endeavors about a year ago, making some
with a
videos.
W, people. Nowak with a W. Nowak.
And actually, some of my favorite videos are me making my road trip series when I went out west and back last year when I met you. So
that's nice.
In part, unfortunately, you're not in it. I wish
dude.
I wish I could shoot some clips of me and you together. But I made a 7-part road series, a 7-part video series of my road trip out west. I have a video on water and RO treatment that I've put out, and it's seeming to gain some traction. And I have a whole bunch of ideas for water treatment videos, as well as I have my small business YouTube channel. There's only one video up, but I'm working on building that up too. So if you search my name, you should be able to find me. And I got to subscribe to your YouTube channel. I didn't even know it was up yet, so I'll have to take a look at it and see what you got there.
Fantastic. All right. Yeah. So, Aaron, thank you for joining us today. This was actually really, really fun. This was great, dude. I love talking to you, and I'll see you next time.
Take care, man. Thank you. I appreciate it.
All right. Love you, buddy. Take care. And everyone, thank you for joining the podcast. Thanks for tuning in. Hopefully you love Aaron as much as I do, and definitely check him out. All right. Love you guys. Peace.